Hey guys, it's Alexandra. April is World Autism Month, so today we're going to be talking to William. He was diagnosed with autism when he was 4, and his doctors told his mom that he probably would have no chance of being independent, but he not only became independent, he actually earned his master's degree in special education and now uses his platforms to teach all about autism and help advise parents and teachers as to how they can best raise and guide children with autism. He speaks about how autism doesn't look the same from person to person. So I think it's a really good opportunity to learn more about autism and more about his story. So I hope that you will stay tuned to check him out and subscribe for more videos. Thank you.
My name is William Wehrli, and I am an individual diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder. I was suspected at 18 months and officially diagnosed at 4 years old. The people who evaluated me told my mother that I would never stand a chance in this world as an independent human being and that I would never graduate from school. I didn't learn to speak properly until I was 6 years old. My biological dad left me and my sister at age 7. My previous stepdad expressed frustration with me due to my struggles and my quirks. I was bullied in school for being different, mistreated by teachers, supervisors at work, and co-workers. Nevertheless, I still stand here today with a master's degree in special ed. I have my own house, car, job, and pay my bills and do all my grocery shopping. I have presented many public presentations on my autism experience for many years. So this is a theory that I like to call the autism cloud. And the way how I describe the autism cloud is that you try to picture this. So you have a brain as the main source of your mind, and then you have thousands of reliable information sources that are all attempting to feed knowledge into your brain. And it can either be books, the media, lectures, but something is blocking that knowledge from entering your mind, and nobody can really see or identify what that barrier is. And when I was really young, all I can remember from starting when I was maybe 4 years old is that it felt like I had a thick piece of cloth that was covering my face. And if you were to put a cloth over my face, it's not going to make me blind, but it is going to limit my sight to the point where I can't see everything that is going on around my surroundings. And it's also like I had earplugs as well. And earplugs, they're not going to make me deaf, but they are going to limit my hearing to a strong point. And then as I got older and older, that cloth that served as a blindfold, it began to form into a cloud. And that cloud could contain visions, visions from what I see from sources like the internet, books, TV, and lectures. And it can also contain like events from what I experienced in my past, or what I'm thinking of is going to happen in my future, or what is currently going on around me. And so when you're like focusing on a million things at once, it makes it really impossible to understand what is going on in your present moment. So that's how it kind of felt with me as I was growing up with autism. And then over time, I learned how to develop behaviors so that I can better fit in with society.
Mm-hmm.
But because my brain was not developing like a typical person's brain was, I didn't understand communication properly. So there were certain words that I never heard of, and there was certain things that I did not understand. And if you try to teach me something, there was a pretty good chance that I may not understand it at first. So you may have to try like so many different attempts or ways of explaining it so that I do understand it. Sometimes when I try to respond, I respond in a way that some people find offensive, which is usually not my intent, or people will approach me in a way that I find offensive, which is not their intent. And because I have a hard time understanding, people tend to assume that I'm ignoring them. And so when they assume that I'm ignoring them, they get frustrated and get right into my face or snap their fingers in my face, thinking that that's the best way to get my attention, but that's usually where they're wrong. And when people try to get my attention that way, it startles me to the point where I enter that fight, flight, or freeze mode. And when I'm in that mode, I can't even function and I can't even understand what's going on at all. And it made socializing very hard for me because of how my brain was limited to a certain knowledge. I didn't understand boundaries as I was growing up. And because of how I didn't understand boundaries, people tend to avoid me because there's times when I would do things that made them feel uncomfortable. I'm just trying to think if there's anything else.
So you were actually, your mom was told that you weren't going to be independent, right?
She
And then
was told. She
you
was
ended
told that, yes.
you ended up breaking those odds. So do you want to talk a little bit about maybe how you overcame that, that sort of diagnosis that you weren't going to be able to do things on your own, you weren't going to be able to, control your own finances or graduate or any of that stuff. And then you overcame a lot of those obstacles. So I would love to hear about that.
Okay. Once again, you'll have to bear with me as I take a moment to think.
Nope, absolutely, you're fine.
Okay. So redirection is probably the very first thing that I would recommend when you are working with autistic people, or myself, for instance. If I was to do something that was not okay or had nothing to do with the topic that was being taught to me, you would just have to calmly redirect me to the topic at hand, or redirect me from what it is that I'm doing that I should not be doing. Um, and when it comes to redirection, it can be a big sudden change for me. And big sudden changes are not things that I was always comfortable with. So you would have to help me slowly transition from one phase to the next phase. And to do that, you can just give me like a small heads up and then help me make little baby steps towards that next phase. And usually when I do what I should be doing, it's best to reward me with positive reinforcement, like, give me a high praise of he's telling me that I did a good job, even for the smallest accomplishments. um so a lot of it was little steps on achieving goals. There was a book that I read by Stephen Guise. It's called Mini Habits, and the author, Stephen Guise, he notates that one of the main reasons why people don't accomplish much is because they spend more time thinking about how much they need to do rather than actually doing something. And so that's why he recommends that you just pick like maybe the top 3 goals that you want to focus on. And that's what you had to do with me. If you were to come up with a goal for me, it's usually best to just focus on one goal at a time, slow and steady, until I reach a point where I'm comfortable of performing that goal on my own. And I do want to point out that as I was growing with autism, it wasn't easy for me because I did deal with a lot of bullying, and I dealt with a lot of frustrated teachers or leaders that were working with me. Um, so I want to say that it was more about maybe being consistent to what it was that I was working towards. And then when people saw that I was improving, then that kind of got them to warm up to me, I would say. And usually what really did help me is that I had to work with people that were patient enough to give me the time and patience that I needed to succeed.
Do you ever feel like your autism can be a strength to you at all?
I do, yes. This is something that I actually put down on a job application, is that while being autistic does limit my knowledge and understanding and learning to a certain point, it can be a strength because I exhibit many talents that other people do not. Like, I'm very attentive to detail. So if you're going to put me on in a job field, and you assign a task to me, there's a good chance that I will be very focused on that task until it is complete. And if I spot any errors or mistakes in there, I'm quick to pick up on them. And I also have a very good memory too. So if you are to give me a task that's simple and easy to remember, it's going to stick with me. And I'm very eager to please people. So if you're gonna hire me for a job, then just know that I'm somebody that you can get along with, and someone that's open to feedback and criticism. And then and because of my eagerness to please, that means I work very hard well.
Yes, that's awesome. And I can tell that you work so hard because you were able to actually get your master's degree in special education, right?
I was,
I
yes.
think that's awesome. So good for you. A lot of people who don't have autism don't even get their master's. So that's awesome. How
Thank you
did
so
you
much.
decide that that's what you wanted to do?
So when I got my bachelor's degree back in 2012, I was just at the point where I did not want to know what I wanted to do at the time, and I was working a full-time job to support myself. And my field of study at the time was geared towards theater and acting. I always wanted to be an actor ever since I saw Star Wars for the very first time. And theater and acting was just a very competitive field and a very hard field to me to get into. And I felt like that one of my biggest disadvantages of going into that field is that nobody's heard of me, and so therefore nobody cares, which is a common thing that people will say about YouTubers.
Right.
So I attended an open meeting at one of the theater universities that I used to attend, and they had a topic for new business. And when we came down to discussing that new topic, I posed the idea that maybe it would be nice if I gave a talk about my autism experiences, like what it was like for me when I was diagnosed and how I was functioning with autism and growing with autism, how autism affects me as an individual, but what it can also do for me in terms of strengths. And the people at the meeting were just very intrigued by that idea. And they took it up with the board of directors at the university that I attended, and they approved of that. And this was for the Arts and Culture Festival that comes up. The Arts and Culture Festival is it's an event for people from a wide range of diversity cultures.
Mhm.
And that's where the idea struck with me, is that because I consider myself diverse, that it would be nice to hear what it's like from my background. And I'm assuming that's one of the reasons why they approved. And when I gave that talk, I had so many people show up for that, and I was already nervous. It was like giving a TED talk. And it just turned out to be like a huge success. My sister attended, and she was just, shedding tears of joy, seeing how I was doing so well up there. I had so many people greeting and approaching me. And so I felt, wow, maybe this is something that I'm meant to do. Maybe I'm supposed to share my story about autism and educate people about autism as well. And so that success led me to doing more and more live presentations in front of an audience about autism. And then as that success was continuing to grow, I felt that it would be best to pursue a degree that was related to that field so that I can gain more knowledge and experience and get my foot in the door or more. And that's when I saw the special ed program at Western Oregon University in Monmouth, Oregon. So
That's awesome. Do you think after, you dealing with it personally, but also learning about it too through your education, do you think autism is something that might be misrepresented in society? There's some things that maybe people don't understand about it.
I do, yes. I actually created a YouTube series about autism and employment, emphasizing about how being autistic can affect a person's chances of getting a job.
Hmm.
Because a lot of times when people see or hear the word autism, they immediately picture like a little kid that's screaming and flapping his arms around, and they fail to realize that just because one autistic person behaves a certain way doesn't mean that every single person who has autism is going to behave that way. People have a really nasty habit of comparing one autistic person to another. There's been instances where I was struggling in a job field and I had to tell my supervisors that I have autism. And because I have autism, there are certain things that I struggle with. And their response would be, well, we've had autistic people before and they've never behaved like that. So people tend to assume that all autistic people are the same when in fact they're really not. And I think people are also very intimidated by autistic people as well. And the reason why I do feel that way is because they have a feeling that a person with autism is not going to be an asset to their job. And so therefore they don't want to take the chances of hiring someone who is autistic. And a huge downfall is that when you're filling out a job application, there will be a section for disabilities. And among that list of disabilities, autism is listed as one of them. And so that's where I say, yes, I have a disability. And then probably a month or so later, I will get like a rejection letter, saying that they decided not to select me for an interview. Now, I can't really speak for those employers. I can't really prove that this was all out of discrimination. There could have been a million reasons as to why they did reject me, but I do believe that that could be one reason.
And through your videos that you're sharing and about those type of experiences, what are you hoping that people learn from your content?
Well, I'm hoping that people will become more accepting of autistic people and not judge them and not mistreat them, because a lot of people are afraid of what they don't understand, and they respond to that fear by acting cruel towards that. So I'm hoping that I can eliminate that as much as I can. And I'm also hoping that by my video blogs and my education, that I can teach parents to first, have hope and encouragement that their child is going to do just fine as they grow up. And I also want parents to understand how they can better work with their autistic children as they are raising them. And I want teachers to understand how they can work with autistic people. There may be people that have studied special education and have a profession in this field, but I do believe that it takes someone that has been in their shoes to fully understand them, and that they need someone who's been on the inside to teach them. And I'm hoping that that can be the same case for employers too, that if they, for any reason, decide to hire an autistic candidate, that they will know how to work with them.
Absolutely. So how do you feel, having this kind of message sent to you at a young age that you were going to be a certain way or you were going to have all of these limitations, and to be where you are now? How does that feel for you to have all of these successes that you were told that you weren't able to, achieve?
Well, when I received my diagnosis, I actually have no recollection of that. There's very little stuff that I remember being 4 years old or younger.
Right.
But as I did get older, I did deal with a lot of naysayers that did tell me that I would never be good enough. And then for this to happen, it's super overwhelming, you know, because you're trying so hard to just put yourself out there to get recognized and to convince people that, you are somebody who can be a valuable asset to them and that can make a difference in this world. There's another book I read. It's called Atomic Habits by James Clear. And the author notates that one of the reasons why people don't take habits or routines seriously is because they don't see any results at first. And that's when they tend to give up or not take the habits seriously. But the results are going to skyrocket right out of the blue when people least expect it. And that is exactly what happened with me. When I posted my TikTok video about my little autism testimony and how it probably hit over 2 million views by now, it was just, this has never happened to me before. And while it's a very joyous, overwhelming feeling, it can also make me anxious as too, because now I have so many people that are looking up to me and I don't want to let these people down.
And I think it's also I think your story is inspiring without being autistic. I think if you would have said that, if you would have talked about where you are now and you wouldn't have mentioned that you were autistic, I still would have been impressed. So I think that just
Yeah.
shows that you have, you're trying much harder than the average person, but you're achieving so much. So it is really inspiring to see that. I think anybody, especially, people in the autism community can resonate, but even people outside of that community still can see your message that either way, hard work does pay off. As long as you're working hard and you're, you know, trying your best, you can overcome whatever struggles are in your way. So I think that's really great that you are, continuing to share that. What are you looking forward to? What are some of your goals coming up in the future?
Well, first, I do want to say thank you so much for that high praise. I really do appreciate that. Also, if I ramble or seem like I'm off topic, I do apologize.
No, you're fine.
So you asked me what are some things that I'm really looking forward to.
Hmm.
Um, Sorry, I'm just taking a moment to think.
Yeah, take your time.
I think the biggest thing that I'm looking forward to is knowing that I am changing people's lives. There's one of my fitness coaches. She has her own Facebook group and she gives out free coaching. And she comes up with challenges for like $100 giveaway. And I asked her what she's getting out of that. If she's not making money off of this, what is she getting out of it? And she says, I'm changing lives. That's the biggest reward ever. So that's what I'm really looking forward to. I'm really looking forward to like giving parents hope for their kids when they're dealing with so many naysayers that are putting them down, especially professionals who are actually trained to handle these type of things. And I'm just hoping that more autistic people can grow more independently too.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for sharing with me. I really enjoyed hearing from you, and I look forward to following your TikToks and seeing what else you are going to accomplish. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Do you go by Alex or Alexandra? Or
Yeah, I go by both. Either one is fine.
okay, what's your I don't think I got your TikTok by the way.
Yes, I can DM you my info if you want.
Okay, that would
And
work.
then when I put everything up, I'll send the video and everything your way too.
Awesome. What is it that you do, if you don't mind me asking?
Oh yeah, you're good. I'm a journalism student right now. So I live in Maryland. I go to the University of Maryland, so close to home. But everything is still online for me. So I'm coming up this fall on my last semester. So I'll be working toward, right now, I'm almost at the end of my bachelor's in journalism. So right now I'm kind of doing, I'm doing that education wise, but I'm just doing this YouTube thing kind of for the same reason you're doing your TikToks and your videos, just to help people and connect with people. So this format is not a job of mine. It's just something that I do for my own enrichment. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Well, that's great. I wish you the best of luck as you continue going out through school and journaling.
Thank you so much. All right,
Mhm.
I'll be sure and stay in touch with you and send you all the stuff that you need for the video.
Well, thanks so much for having me,
Yeah,
Alex.
absolutely. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure meeting you.
You too.